Well, so-called pro-gun Republicans have let us down once again.
Good, because I'm going to tell you directly to your face.
No, you don't have to.
No, I don't like you.
Today I'm going to tell you exactly what happened with the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act, why it was removed from the big beautiful bill, and just how easy these so-called pro-gun Republicans could actually put it back into the bill and finally get this thing passed. To me, this is voting day for a lot of us because we're going to see exactly who is willing to fight for the Second Amendment. Not just talk about it, because I think we're all tired of hearing people just talk, especially these politicians. And interestingly enough, there's actually an unelected official that stopped this thing in its tracks, and this person can be removed, by the way. So again, this is voting day, right? I want everybody to remember exactly what happens with this, because this is one of the century-defining moments for gun owners and the Second Amendment. And we're going to see exactly who's willing to stand up and fight for it. I want to hear your opinion, whatever it might be, down below. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So as you know, the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act actually got pushed into the big beautiful bill. First, it was taxes, right, on suppressors. So they were going to take that from 200 down to 0. Okay, it's a start, right, but it's not what we want. Deregulation is what we're actually looking for. So this was like the perfect opportunity, because remember, when you're in like a budget reconciliation, the beautiful part about this is you only need 51 votes, so it can't be filibustered. But also, this has everything to do with taxes, and that's exactly how budget reconciliations work, right? That's why they only need 51 votes, because it's either spending or revenue. It has to be tied to both of those. So in a video I made earlier this week, I talked about how obviously the $200 tax stamp, it is directly tied to the Treasury. Right? You have 3 million items out there, $200 a pop. You have 40 to 50,000 new ones being added every single year. That to me is very clear. But then you also have the back end of that, right? You have the registry part of it, which is not free to run these systems. First of all, you have to have the systems in place. Then you have to have the upkeep. Then you have to have people that actually keep up with these registries. You're talking about millions of dollars a year. And as a matter of fact, they just revamped one of these systems. I think it was over $4 million is what they put into it a couple of years ago. So that's tied to the Federal Reserve as well. So in my opinion, there was no way to move forward with just removing the taxes on these items, but also you got to get rid of the registration part of it as well, because again, all that money is being dumped back into the Treasury every single year. Sounds pretty simple. Well, one unelected official, parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough, who was appointed in 2012 by Harry Reid, by the way, is the neutral referee when it comes to these budget reconciliation bills. Well, she looked at this pro-gun language and said, no, this does not survive the Byrd Rule, which again has to be tied to the Treasury, which states that any of these bills have to be tied to federal spending or revenue. And so they kicked both of these out, amongst a lot of other things that they actually changed up. Now, if you don't recognize the name Elizabeth McDonough or whatever, I don't blame you. Neither do I, because nobody ever voted for her. And I'm sorry, I can't buy that somebody is neutral when they were appointed by somebody like Harry Reid. I just don't buy that at all. But we're not done yet. So essentially they go through a procedural vote, then they're going to go through an amendments round, and then it's going to be voted on again, then the House has to approve it again. So all of this they're trying to do by July 4th. So essentially, here's how we can get it reintroduced. One of those ways is being, hey, let's try to do this on a standalone bill, which, come on, let's just be honest, this is probably never going to pass. Again, you just don't have that many Republicans that are willing to fight for the Second Amendment and do it on its own. They talk a good game, but again, it's just talk, right? Politicians on both sides do this. They cater to the people they know are going to vote for them, and then it's like, hey, okay, see you in a few years. Very rarely do you have politicians that are willing to fight for this type of legislation, much less reintroduce it and keep fighting for it. They could also pass it along or make an amendment to another like must-pass bill. So like the National Defense Authorization Act. This is how veterans' gun rights were kind of restored, attaching it to something like that. It puts a lot of pressure on all of these senators and, just make sure, hey, like you can't hold this up. Now that doesn't mean that these amendments cannot be removed, but it is something that they could do in the future. But we're looking at right now. What can happen right now? And one of the ways they could do it is John Thune, who's the Senate Majority Leader, could actually remove the parliamentarian. Now, the last time this was done was in 2001 when the Bush tax cuts were actually going through. They decided not to take the advice of the parliamentarian at that time, and they completely ignored him. Is there a little bit of fallout from doing this? Sure. Are you going to get criticized on the legacy media sites? Absolutely. Is it actually legal to do this? Absolutely. Does John Thune actually have the spine to do something like this? I wouldn't put too much stock into that. I don't even know that he's co-sponsored on any of the HPA or the Short Act at all. Now, of course, on his website, he talks about the Second Amendment and how much that means to him and blah, 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 blah. Nobody wants to hear that crap anymore. We want to see action. So here's what I say. Your Ben Kleins, your Andrew Clydes, right? The people that are actually introducing this legislation and fighting for it, we got to contact them. We got to make sure that they fight for it, because this is honestly the best chance you're ever going to have at passing something this large when it comes to pro 2A legislation, right? This is the time to do it. There is no, to me, there is no other time. That doesn't mean that it can't happen in the future, but this is what we were promised. This is the time to do it. If you got to remove the parliamentarian or just ignore them, do it. Grow a spine, because in my opinion, today is voting day for a lot of these so-called pro-gun Republicans. Now, I've called Lindsey Graham, and that's barking up probably the wrong tree as well, but just to put pressure on these guys, man, we have to do it. We got to let them know that we are watching right now, and we're not going to forget in a couple of years how they voted for this right here. Because again, this is a century-old restriction that we're still paying for. And I'm sorry, but you cannot be pro-Second Amendment and believe that it is okay for the government to get $200 from you, make you go through extra processes, and make you sign a registry to exercise your rights over guns that are functionally the same as every other one. I don't care if it's a break, I don't care if it's an attachment like a suppressor, or if it's a little bit shorter, or if the gun looks weird, or how it fires, none of that. We're not buying this anymore, and that's the way, in my opinion, that is the best way to actually do it. Ignore the parliamentarian, or fire her, because to be honest with you, she doesn't sound very neutral. That's just my opinion, though. Now, just a little update. It looks like they did throw some language back in to remove the $200 tax stamp part of it. And while that's great, and you know, it's part of the equation, I feel like if they actually get this done and it's only the tax part of it, Republicans are going to be able to use this as a great talking point. We stood up for the Second Amendment. We actually got this passed. How amazing is that? But they're going to sit on their loins and not really care about getting rid of the NFA in the future. To me, the taxes and the systems, the money that it takes to run them can so easily be tied together, and these illegal registries, in my opinion, should be destroyed once and for all. So while there may be somewhat of a win, the last thing we want is them saying, oh yeah, this is good enough, and we're just going to go forward with that. Let me know what you think down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.